morning, Bernard.
You don't sound happy at all. That's for obvious reasons. What's the mood? I saw a footage of some journalists in an altercation with the players and the coach. Do you know what happened? What's been going on since the game?
I think an altercation is a little bit of a strong word. So basically what happens after games is there's two sides for journalists to be. You either decide to go to the official press conference or you decide to go to the mix zone. So a good chunk of the journalists decided to go to the mix zone because there's more flexibility. You get to talk to more players generally. But yesterday was a little interesting because, I wouldn't even say yesterday. Right from the beginning of the competition, the players have been uneasy with coming to the mix zone for one reason or the other. I'm not sure. In every single game, there have been at least just 3 or 4 players who have been willing to speak. The rest of the players choose not to come through the mix zone. I don't know if it is for wanting to avoid accountability or not wanting to speak to the media. But the mix zone politics really is such that you don't have to talk to the media if you don't want to. You can basically just walk by and go enter your team bus. Yesterday, after the draw, journalists amassed at the mix zone only to realize that handlers of the Black Stars and also CAF officials had locked the team in the bus and were not willing to let the team come down to speak to the journalists. This went on for at least about 15 minutes and more journalists kept coming. And so the situation kept building up where journalists were agitated, I think, over what they thought was disrespectful because as a player, if you've thrown away a lead in such a manner, and it's been a pattern that's been building for not just this tournament, it's been building from previous tournaments, the least you can do is actually come and speak to journalists or at least walk by journalists and apologize for the performance. I feel like that is basically what journalists were asking for. But the situation turned a little hostile when Chris Hughton passed by, and some journalists actually did hurl some insulting words at him. The Black Stars team managers still insisted that the players would not speak to the team and would stay in the bus and try to drive through the mix zone by soliciting the help of CAF security. And I think that Ghanaian journalists did not take too kindly to that. I don't think there was any physical contact between any players and the journalists. Journalists just basically took a united stand to not question the players instead, but rather just let them pass through. Some decided to hoot at them. Some basically decided that, you know what, if you don't want to talk to the media, it's fine. You can just walk by and go into your bus. But you won't also dictate how journalists react to the game. It was a bit of a touchy situation, really. Most of my colleague journalists haven't slept. A couple of them have already left for Ghana. Some are still back here. But basically, that's a summary of what happened.
So did what happened at the press conference proper then? Because I'm sure after all of this, there was a press briefing, right? Because I had Chris Hughton try to explain some of his decisions. So was the press conference then after that? And what happened?
No. So the press conference was, it happened, both presses happened simultaneously. So while some people decide to go to the presser, some decide to come to the mix zone. So Hughton, the verbal assault I'm talking about happened when Hughton walked by the mix zone into the press room. And so there he went and addressed the press, took responsibility. And that's exactly the same place where Kudus Mohammed also was interviewed, where he said that he was short for words. He really didn't know what to say, but the presser itself did go on smoothly. Mostly Hughton and Kudus both come from the presser room and walk through the mix zone as well. And that's what Hughton has been doing. When he does the official presser, he walks through the mix zone and speaks to journalists there as well. Yesterday, that did not happen because obviously tensions were pretty high. Kudus Mohammed as well didn't stop to speak to the media because, again, tensions were high. Some people were generally unhappy with the team. Media people were generally unhappy with the team. And so he was also subject to some of the booing that happened.
But listening to Chris Hughton himself, what has he been saying? Has he been apologizing, or is he just... Because what I read from what you wrote was he said the team wasn't good enough, and we found out the team wasn't good enough. I'm thinking, but we told you this even before the tournament. So did he really take responsibility? What was his demeanor? Can you just elaborate a bit on what he said after the match?
He was really in a somber state, really, if I can put it like that. He did say that he's taking responsibility for the defeat, and that he believes that this is on him and that he's not had a great tournament. And so he didn't mince words with that. He stated that categorically, that this was a defeat or this was a bad tournament that should rest squarely on his shoulders. He actually did make some comments that also generated some controversy. For instance, the decision to take off Joseph Paintel at halftime. When asked about it, he said that Joseph Paintel looked fatigued, and that's why he decided to yank him at halftime for Andre Ayew. Unfortunately for him, Joseph Paintel has friends in the media, and so the media questioned Joseph Paintel about whether he was fatigued and whether that was the reason why Houghton took him off. And he said that there was no iota of fatigue in his body, and so he was baffled by Houghton's decision to yank him and also to give that excuse as the reason why he was taking off. And so all of this basically fed into the unease that led to everything that you saw in the videos.
So if you look at Joseph Paintel, first game he plays, he's taking off. Second game he doesn't play at all. And then the third game he's taking off at halftime. I mean, for those of us watching the game, it's like, is it that we don't understand football? Because watching the game, he looked like our biggest threat in the first half. In you get my point. So, Is it like the technical team? Do they have another TV they used to watch it? Because I see the coach talking to some other guy. Is it George Boateng? And they discuss something or they do what they do. So is it like do they watch the game from a different angle? And did you? I don't know, because you were at the mix zone, you were at the press conference. I don't know if he was quizzed on some of his other tactical choices. For example, I'm told that he took, of all his midfielders, apart from Ashimeru, he didn't even have a proper number 8. They were mostly number 6s he took, right? Yep. Has he explained the choice of his midfield to the media at all?
I mean, he has on several occasions. And if you know Chris Houghton, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, Brighton and Hove Albion, typically, he prefers to play with a double pivot, something that a lot of the media have called outdated. And we believe that, I mean, if you are Ghana with the skill set of players that Ghana has, most people believe that to play a double pivot is to waste the talent that we have on the pitch. And so not a lot of people have been happy with his choice, especially, for instance, the decision to take Kumasi Asante Kotoko's Richmond Lamptey, who was a direct replacement in terms of profile for a guy like Majid Ashimeru when he came off. A lot of journalists expected that in a game where you're expected to be on the front foot, you're expected to attack, you're expected to want to qualify to the next round, you bring in a player that you expect to be able to progress the ball and not play a double pivot and have almost 5 or 6 defenders or center backs in the game at one point. And so definitely his tactics have been quizzed. As to the Joseph Paintel issue, I mean, I think this is my 3rd tournament with the Black Stars, and I can tell you that there's some politics going on in there. Ironically, Joseph Paintel has had his most minutes in a tournament under Chris Houghton. But I also believe that there are unseen forces or hands that manipulate substitutions that are purely not of the coach. And I think Joseph Paintel is one of those situations. I'll explain. Now, yesterday, Andre Ayew was chasing a record, right? And so ideally, one would have thought that if Andre Ayew is chasing a record of most appearances, what you would typically do is to bring him on maybe in the final 10 minutes or in the final 5 minutes so he could possibly break that record when the game is definitely won. But the decision to take off Paintel, whom a lot of my colleagues and I believe was our best player during the first half, was a really puzzling one. And there were people who tried to make excuses for the technical team saying that he was injured. But like I said, Joseph Paintel is a player I'm close to and a couple of my media friends are close to. So we personally found him and spoke to him after the game. And he said that there's no way he was tired. I mean, it was only 45 minutes of football played. And Houghton's words were puzzling because he said Joseph Paintel looked fatigued. I mean, how do you determine that a player is fatigued by looking at him? I thought that was very strange on the part of Chris Houghton. And the players' decision to respond to that retort just cast him in a really bad light in the end of the day. At the end of the day.
What about the goalkeeper? There's a claim that he hasn't played competitive football in a while. Nathan has blamed him for one of the goals against Capo Verde, the way he punched it back in, and clearly he was at fault for the second goal. What's the issue with him? Why is he the number one? Has the coach explained why Atizigi, for example, is not the one in the between the sticks?
Again, another very puzzling choice. We asked him about this after the second game, and his answer was very strange. He says that as far as the goalkeeping department is concerned, he defers authority to his goalkeeper's trainer, who is Richard Olele Kingston. And according to the intellect and knowledge of Olele Kingston, it is believed that Ofori deserves to start ahead of Atizigi. Again, if you know your Black Stars politics, Ofori and Richard Kingston go a long way. And so the decision to veto his preferred goalkeeper for the head coach is not a strange one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because I think Amokachi. Are you on?
Yeah. Yes, I'm on. I'm just saying that the decision to veto him was very strange because, like you rightly said, Ofori he's not played 3 games for Orlando Pirates. And even if you go to Orlando Pirates, Ofori has dropped in the pecking order to 3rd in Orlando Pirates. Atizigi, ironically, is number 1 goalkeeper, not just for St. Gallen, but has been voted and is currently the best goalkeeper in the Swiss league. He made a couple of mistakes in the qualifiers in the run-up to the AFCON itself. And I believe that those mistakes were used in judging him harshly, and he was subsequently dropped. But, I mean, it's obvious that he is our number 1 goalkeeper. He's been our most active goalkeeper amongst all the 3. And so the decision to not just make Ofori number 1, but also hand him the captain's armband was very strange because Ofori looked really like a goalkeeper who was unfit the whole time. In basic goalkeeping scenarios, he looked jittery. And I had been harping on this on my social media every time that Ofori looked like one of the weakest links in the team, even from very basic situations where you'd expect the goalkeeper to stay solid and handle. But maybe the coach did not see it that way. He, in all the games that we watched, when Ofori made mistakes and we questioned him about it, he chose to look at the brighter side. He would say, you know what, minus Richard, we probably would have lost this game by 4 goals or 5 goals. He made good saves. And according to my goalkeeper's trainer, I believe he should be number 1. I trust the decision of my goalkeeper's trainer, and that's why I'm keeping Ofori in the post.
I actually heard Amokachi, when he was commenting Mark Gleason, say that there was a one particular scenario, or so one of particular situation where he punched the ball back into play and Jiku was chastising him. And Amokachi said he feels like because the keeper has not been playing for a long time, he's a bit rusty and also not fit because he felt like that ball was a ball the keeper should have caught. And this is Amokachi saying this. So you can tell that, and all the DSTV pundits were wondering why Ghana would use a keeper who hadn't played for Orlando Pirates for that long to play. So that's all those things are there. But not on the negative side. For those of us watching, I think there were a few bright lights. From where I sit, it seems to me, obviously, Kudus did very well. It looks as if Pencil as well gave a good account of himself, Jiku as well, and Majid Ashimeru. I think those are the 4 players that seem to have done well. I don't know whether that's the same feeling you and your colleague get watching them with the naked eye.
Certainly. I mean, those are players who they played out a good tournament. They looked like they were committed to the cause because Kudus Mohammed was risking playing with a hamstring injury when he was not 100% fit. And so that definitely endeared him to all those who were in Cote d'Ivoire to watch the tournament. Ashimeru is one whom everybody's been clamoring for to play in the Black Stars for a while. And finally, the technical team decided to give him a shot in this particular one. But I feel like, again, Ashimeru got his shot because a guy like Thomas Partey wasn't around. He took it with both hands. And I believe that going forward, he's one of those guys who will probably appear on the first team sheet going a little more frequently. One other player whom a lot of people felt was due a good tournament but was not given the chance to show his prowess was Enes Nyama. And again, when that Pencil substitution was made and Andre was brought on, a lot of people asked themselves, if you are trying to keep the creativity, stay on the front foot and try and get goals in a game, when you take off a Joseph Pencil who has legs, who can track back, who can switch flanks, you don't bring on Andrea. You bring on an Enes Nyama who is young, who is skillful, and who can create something out of nothing. And so the fact that the young chap who has made waves in Europe over the past year and a half did not get enough playing time to show what he's capable of in this tournament was disappointing. Again, Houghton's choice of selections really throughout the tournament always left one question or the other to be answered. But definitely, I think that you've properly highlighted the players whom a lot of us feel like have given a good account of themselves during this competition. Hopefully, there will be some reset of some sorts, and maybe these guys can maybe be the building blocks of the Black Stars going forward.
Which is funny because some of the other teams like Senegal and Mali are comfortably using 20-year-olds who are scoring great goals, who are doing very well. So for us to bring a 30-something-year-old half time to think that he would change a game is funny. My last question, though, is, so the players are distraught, obviously. They are angry. They are disappointed. The coach seems to say, I'm not sure if he's accepted responsibility entirely. What about the FA, right? So in the aftermath, what are the soundings in Abidjan? Because it seems to me as if the FA would probably just come and say, oh, well, we didn't do well, we'll try another time. But this is like the second straight tournament that we have come out in the first round without winning a game. So the ignominy is growing. Is there pressure on even the FA chairman, or for now it's just the players that people are focusing on?
I mean, yesterday, funny enough, during the confusion that ensued after the game, it was just the team manager from the management side of things who had to come face the media. The FA president and co, after some minutes, we realized there was a team bus with some management members, technical team staff, following the Black Stars team out of the hotel. And then after about an hour, we saw members of the Executive Council and some members of the Black Stars Management Committee in a huddle right outside the perimeter of the stadium. I mean, it's still in the inner perimeter of the stadium, but outside the main arena itself, having some sort of emergency meeting. We are not sure exactly what was said in that meeting, but we also know that there was some supporter disturbance. And so they possibly could have been meeting on any of those things. I mean, as things stand now, like you rightly said this morning, we don't have a release. We don't have any indication of resignation or anything that looks like responsibility taken from the upper hierarchy of the GFA. And this has really been it. Typically what happens is they will pick a scapegoat, come down to Ghana and try and make that person take the fall for what has happened. Houghton himself was asked about if he was going to resign, because this has been really, this has topped Cameroon, if you ask me, in terms of how bad Ghana have been. Because at least in the game against Comoros in the last AFCON, Ghana had a red card and at least tried to make a fight out of it. This one is the team throwing away a 2-0 lead in a space of 6 minutes when really they had played a poor game all 90. So Houghton has stopped short of resigning. The FA hierarchy have stopped short of saying anything to anybody. I believe that meeting that was had in the open was for the optics, to make it seem as if there was something being done or something being discussed. Because really, if something concrete had been, if a concrete decision had been taken or something serious was going to happen, we'll probably have heard of it by now. As things stand now, nothing really. We are still waiting for the FA president. He himself has not been cited since all of
What about the Minister of Sports? Yesterday. What about the Minister of Sports? Has he been talking to the media? Is he at the tournament?
He hasn't. He is at the tournament actually, but talking to the media, no. He stayed out of the public eye. When he is spotted, he is mostly spotted in the company of the GFA. The last time I spotted the minister was after the Cape Verde game, when he and the FA president wanted to go to the team's dressing room. I think they wanted to address the team after the collapse in that particular game, but they were prevented. I think that's the last I saw of the minister.
Well, thank you. Just finally, though, yesterday Côte d'Ivoire's 4-0 drubbing at the hands of Equatorial Guinea surprised those of us who are not really football people. But, I mean, what's going on? And what's the mood in the country? I mean, what happened?
it's interesting you should ask, because the events of the Cote d'Ivoire game basically cascaded into the Ghana game. So a lot of the fans who came in to watch the Cote d'Ivoire game were hoping to stay and watch the Ghana game, because in their minds, they were going to beat Equatorial Guinea, celebrate, and then join Ghana to support Ghana against Mozambique. Now, what happened after that 4-0 defeat? I talked to a few Ivorian journalists who basically believe that the head coach is clueless and that he has an abundance of talent at his disposal, but is really at a loss as to who to put into what position. They also believe that there are certain players who are getting starting berths as a result of their connections to certain powerful figures in the team. Case in point, Nicolas Pepe. A lot of people feel like he's not the guy to be starting games for Cote d'Ivoire in 2024. A guy like Evan Ndika as well, plays his football for AS Roma, has been decent in recent times, but they feel like they had more seasoned players on the bench, players who have come through their ranks, players who understand Ivorian football culture more than some of these guys. And so for them not to get a shot in, the head coach definitely has taken a stick. But also interestingly, the Ivorian players were kept at the stadium almost 3 hours after the game ended, because fans really were not happy. I don't know if you saw it on TV, but some fans started hurling missiles onto the pitch in the aftermath of that defeat. And so there was heavy CAF security presence. Ivorian police were called in to reinforce that security. They were literally in battle gear outside the stadium, basically to try and avert any form of unfortunate occurrence. And then outside the stadium itself, some buses were actually vandalized. So some buses belonging to supporter groups for the Ivorians were vandalized. The players, I believe, left the stadium after about 3 hours of waiting, when they could be escorted safely out by the police. And so the mood in town was really tense. And so even as Ghanaians, we were advised to keep our celebrations. I mean, we thought we were going to win. Funny enough, we thought we were going to win. So we were just about 10, 15 minutes before the Ghana game ended, we were advised to keep any form of celebrations on the low until maybe we made it to our various hotels and also maybe our team buses. But again, the victory for Ghana ended up not coming anyway, and town really was dead as of the time that we were done with our press and we're heading back to our various destinations.
Thank you so much for your work and for the report, Benjamin Nketiah. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much, Brandon.